Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at. Mark Becker here with Cathexis Partners. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We're going to be answering the questions that you sent in and any other questions you have along the way about Razor's Edge NXT. But just briefly about us. Again, I'm Mark Becker, the founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Started the organization about 12 years ago now, and we've helped hundreds of nonprofits on different platforms. But the majority of our work is on Blackbaud platforms, including Razor's Edge, and looking forward to addressing the questions. Thank you so much for the folks that submitted questions in advance today, because we were trying to decide. We've done a few of these sessions now, and we were trying to decide what to cover next, and we were all over the place and which direction to go next. And we said, all right, well, let's just send out a survey and see what your questions are. And we got a lot of good questions back from folks. So without further ado, I want to hand it off to Erin, and she'll dive right in.
Good morning. My name is Erin Fleischmann. I've been with Cathexis for a little over 2 years now. I think that's about right. I've been a Blackbaud user for over a decade. I have experience in higher ed and other nonprofits. Majority of my time has been in higher ed, and I have predominantly been in charge of database administration. I've been an executive director of advancement services, development, and information technology at different universities. So that's a little bit about my background. So moving right into your questions. First question up, before moving to NXT, what information needs to be cleaned up and organized in Razor's Edge? So really, really good question, because you wouldn't think there would actually need cleanup if you're already in RE and you're going to NXT from Classic to WebView. But there are recommendations for this. Review your tables, look at your phone types, look at your solicit codes. So I'm going to switch over. Well, we'll leave this one for now. Run your address finder to ensure all your addresses are up to date. Review your solicitors. Make sure that your solicitors are set up and work in Razor's Edge. Make sure their box is marked in Razor's Edge Classic View. On Bio 1, bottom right-hand corner, there is a box that says, is a solicitor. That box should be checked. That will help when you are doing the conversion. Confirm your staff all have blackbaud.com accounts. If you need help with this, if you want further information, go to blackbaud.com and go into their knowledge base. And they do have some great articles in there about preparing for conversion that would probably be very helpful. But your basics, look at your tables, clean up your tables, look at your phone types, look at your solicit codes, look at your addressee salutations, look at your action statuses, run the address finder, run your deceased finder, that type of thing. And that will help you tremendously in being more successful with the NXT conversion. Any questions on this question?
Nothing yet. I did forget to mention that to everybody, in case it's not obvious, there is a questions or the ability to chat your questions in. Everybody is going to be muted besides the two of us, just to make sound quality better. But feel free, as you come up with questions, feel free to ask them, even if they're not pertaining to this. We'll try to get to all the questions. And like I said, these are all the pre-submitted questions that came in and from people that filled out the survey. We weren't able to address them all, I don't think, but definitely going to hopefully get through what we can. So nothing at this time, Erin.
Great. So one last thing I'll say on this is between the classic view and the web view, you will see some terminology changes, field names that are different. So familiarize yourself and your team with those differences. Just some, for instances, solicitor in classic view becomes a fundraiser in the web view. Nickname in database view becomes preferred name in web view. Attributes become custom fields. Proposals become opportunities. Cash, gift type cash becomes a one-time gift. That type of thing. Annotations are now alerts. So, make sure that you are familiar with those changes, that your team is familiar with that terminology, so that, you continue to speak the same language and that are understood when you're speaking that language.
Do you happen to know if there's a listing of the different vocabulary anywhere available?
There's a Razor's Edge NXT Terminology Guide. Let me see if I can find it real quick for you. It is in the knowledge base, article number 101288. And it will give you
101288.
Yes. And that will give you the database view versus the web view terminology.
Nice. Oh, there was another question that came in. Why do you have to is a solicitor checkbox checked?
That tells the system that they are a solicitor and that they have a portfolio, that they may or may not have goals. So when there's a conversion between database view to the web view, the back end of it, Blackbaud uses that checkbox to make sure those people are brought over as fundraisers and set them up accordingly.
Good stuff. Thanks.
All right. How do I notice when a donor in my portfolio just made a gift and I need to thank them? All right, we're going to switch over and go into NXT. If you are in, you have a portfolio, that means you're a fundraiser because we are in the web view. You go to fundraising and you go down to your work. And this is actually going to be any fundraiser's new best friend, is this work center. If you are a fundraiser, you can actually have it come up and always be at your work center. So that's just how it goes, and it's great. It will give you a very good overview of your system and your portfolio and what's going on. So it says that for everybody in Cathexis, we have 5 fundraisers. We have 181 people in our portfolio. We have 1,382 gifts given by that portfolio. We have 50 actions and 26 opportunities, which, as you know, in database view, opportunities are proposals. So, quick overview of the work center. What you will know is NXT does tags, and tags are something that is built in, and it's basically something, it's an algorithm that Blackbaud has come up with, their team, and they will put tags on records. One of those tags can be, like a new donor or high wealth rating or anything like that. So you should, if you can see higher giving potential, here's a lapsed donor, they have an overdue pledge. We've got some problems in this. We have a lot of lapsed donors and a lot of people with higher giving potential that we are not doing a good job, Mark. So
I'll get on that.
So if you look, it gives you a good overview. And you can add an action, you can dismiss it. If you dismiss it, it disappears from this, you won't see it. This tells you how many pages you have of constituents with tags. So if you move down, it shows you all this, but this is where your tags would come. So if you have somebody with an in your portfolio that gave a gift, it would show up here because it would have gotten a new tag with, gave a gift. If it's a new donor, so if they're in your portfolio and they've never given a gift, they're a new donor, it would also pop up here. Recent gifts are tags. So there's lots of different tags. Let's see, you have the lapsed, you have a lost donor, you have if they attended an event, high wealth ratings, higher giving potential, new donor, no contact, no meeting, overdue pledges, recent gifts. They registered for an event, they have an upcoming birthday, all kinds of things, all kinds of tags. These are recommendations from the system that you should be doing something with this person, with this constituent. It will show you.
Can the organization or staff set up tags as well, or are they all system defined?
These are system defined, and I am not positive. I believe you can view but not add or edit tags. I'm pretty sure these are hard coded, and you can see them, but you cannot add or edit them. And I'm double checking something right now. Yes, that's what it says. You can view but not add or edit tags for constituents throughout Razor's Edge NXT. So
cool, thanks.
So, but this is where you manage your portfolio. This is where you will find out, everything that's going on, with your group. We had 50 actions. All of them are past due. We haven't completed any of them, and we have no future ones. So we're really not doing well as fundraisers. And it tells you, how many people in your portfolio are in which part of the process, of the pipeline. Any questions on this part?
Not on this part, nope.
Okay. Understanding retention, acquisition, and recapture. Okay. So let's go back into Razor's Edge. And we're going to go over, we're going to, staying in fundraising, we're just going to go to the reporting side. Really? We're going to do this today. Perfect. Okay, we may have to come back to that one. For whatever reason, it is not liking me today. All right, I will have to come back to show you, but this is where the retention and everything would be. So as far as retention is basically letting you know your donor retention and your revenue retention. So it's giving you both. So it lets you know your first year donor retention, your year-over-year donor retention, your year-to-date retention, and your rolling donor retention. Each of these have a different impact for you. Under the year-over-year donor retention, you can compare the donor retention rate percentage to previous years, and it gives you the current year plus your 2 previous years. So it kind of lets you know, how are you doing? You may have a metric that you have to increase donor retention by 5% or 20% or whatever, they've set for you. This is where it tells you, are you meeting your goal? Yes or no? Are you retaining donors? If you're not, what should I be doing? And if in the retention dashboard, it will give you tips and stuff on what you're doing, what you could do better. It will give you analysis filters, and it considers all the constituents. So depending on your permissions in NXT, you may only see what you have permission to see. There are some organizations that have chapters or multiple colleges within a district or a university or so forth, and people are restricted on what they can and cannot see. So you will only see those things that you have permissions to see, obviously. So if you're not seeing something, it's probably because you don't have permissions and you need to talk to your database administrator. But retention is just, how are you doing? How do you keep your donors engaged? Do they need to be assigned fundraisers, that provide regular interactions and get them involved and all that? So if you're seeing a downward trend, why are you seeing a downward trend? What can you do to change that and bring it back up? So that's the purpose of the donor retention. Acquisition is pretty much the same thing. It's, what's new, who's new, what are we doing to increase our base of supporters and not lose them as donors. So it lets you know, this will do a year over year. So it does this year over the last 2 years. It tells you how many new donors you've acquired, what your donor acquisition rate is, how much you've acquired in revenue, and what your revenue acquisition is. So it helps you to increase that base of supporters and helps you to see, if you're doing something right, then that acquisition rate should be going up. And that's what you want to see, those upward trends. Any questions so far on those two?
Yeah, on the retention reports, do the retention reports look at soft credited gifts, i.e. if the giving is through a donor advised fund but soft credited to the individual?
I don't know that one. I've never been asked that, and I have not seen that. I know there's some Blackbaud people on.
Yeah, if anybody wants to speak up from Blackbaud or anybody else knows that answer off the top of your head, that's great. But otherwise, we can definitely look into it and follow up after the call.
Absolutely. Good question. You stumped me.
I like it.
Any other questions? I do too. When I get stumped, I actually learn something, because as soon as we're off, that's the first thing I'm going to do is go check these answers and learn something new. Any other questions?
Let's see not sure if it relates to this area or not, but can you enter gifts and create a donor acknowledged letter in RE NXT?
Okay. Yeah, we're not in that part yet, and we'll hold that
cover
question
that later,
because
right?
if we have time, we can cover that later, because we have all the questions that came in first. So, and then, so we've done retention, acquisition. Recapture is basically donors who, they were donors, we lost them, they're back. So it lets you know how many you've recaptured, through your appeals and donor retention efforts. You may recapture lapsed donors. So it's kind of like your live and silent. We lost them, but we got them back. So, and it's basically analyzing the constituents who gave during the current fiscal year after more than 15 months of not interacting with you, and their previous gift within the past 5 years. So it's quite a powerful, tool to see, what are we doing? How are we trying to recapture? if you have a specific strategy on recapture, this will tell you if it's working or not. You will see your numbers grow. You will see your recapture percentage rate grow. And obviously with that, you will see your recaptured revenue grow with it. So
great.
I believe that is for that one. Any other? And how best to use them is obviously if you see a downward trend on any of those, you want to immediately reevaluate what you're doing and look at your strategies and maybe run some test items, A/B tests to see if something's working better than another, and then start trending that direction. Okay. How do I notice a donor who is not in a portfolio but registered for an event and has a high wealth rating? So for this, since they're not in a portfolio, they will not show in your, workspace area. So best way to flag these or to note these, if you're in NXT, is to create a list. And for anybody who has registered for an event and give it a date range and has a high wealth rating. So you would just create that list. Let's take a look. So if we went over to lists, we want to see we're grouping our constituents. So that's why we chose constituents. I want to build a new list. From this list, I want to look. So I've never built one for this. Wealth ratings, obviously. Depends on what you consider a high wealth rating. Or, if you're just going for the 5s or you want the 4s too. And then you also wanted to, doesn't look like we can do an event registration on this. Interesting. Unless your event registration is tied to a specific campaign fund or appeal, which most of them should have an appeal, then you could do it by that. So.
Oh yeah, good catch. Yep.
So we would be able to do it this way and apply the filters. Oh. Okay. We don't have anybody who matches a high wealth rating that, has money to that appeal. So, but that's how you would do it. And then once you have that list, you can export it. You can change your columns, add or remove whatever columns you want. You can, if you don't like how your columns fit, you can move them around. You can, this is another way of doing you can filter on a map. You can, do your little wand and draw your area. I'm going to do that one though. So there are many, many ways of getting through this. Let's go back. So this is your filters. This is your columns. If you want to try and find somebody in the list, you would do that here. If there's some way you want to add or remove to the list, you can do it from here. And obviously you can export it and you can share it with individuals or however you choose to deal with the list. Okay. But that's how you could find those people, how you can make them stand out.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Full clarification on the differences. I don't know about full clarification, but there are things that you have to do in the web view. or in the database view that cannot be done in the web view yet. Blackbaud is constantly working on NXT and improving it and adding new features and so forth, but it is not there yet. So, I don't see us being without the database view for a while. There's still too many things that just cannot be done. For instance, if you wanted something as simple as a list of who gave gifts last month, but you want to use this list for thank yous. So you need, obviously the constituent name, their address, their phone number, their email, the gift amount, the gift appeal, what they gave to, the fund they gave to, all that information. You cannot get all that information in NXT on a single list. You would have to create a gift list for the gifts, and then you would have to run a constituent list to get their contact information. So it's a little cumbersome. So, whereas in the database view, you can run your query, pull everybody, and do your export for, getting the data you need quickly and easily. So if you are a database administrator person, you will spend 90 to 95% of your time in the database view. The web view is predominantly, right now that I see, is predominantly being used by development officers, C-suite people, executives, that board of directors, because it's visual, it's pretty intuitive to use. So a lot of C-suite people can be, shall we say, technically challenged. Can be, not all of them. Some of them are really sharp, but so it makes it easy for them to utilize and see things and give it a visual display. So quickly and easily see what's going on without having to try and look at an Excel spreadsheet and go cross-eyed trying to figure out what is this trying to tell me. So that would be, so I'm not getting into exact, all of the things that are different, but those are the main things. If you're a database administrator, you're still going to spend the majority of your time at this time in the classic database view.
Kind of along those lines, a question came in earlier. I think you kind of addressed it, but I understand that some data, when entered in web view, does not move over to database view, i.e. attachments. Do you have any tips on best practices or ideas for data entry so that you can query on that info?
Yeah. Everywhere I've been and that my clients that I've worked with, we have set the policy that for some people, they never even see database view. So if they have an attachment, they submit it and it gets attached via the database view. They are never to attach something via NXT. We don't give them permissions to attach in WebView because of that issue. Because if there are a number of things, and if you ever try to merge a record in the database view, you will see a warning. Anything from, there are certain items in the NXT that if they are entered via NXT WebView, they will not merge, they will not come over, and you will lose that in the database and NXT because it's just the way it's set up. So, visit Blackbaud's knowledge base and look at that. Be familiar with what can and cannot, be merged and moved because it will impact your data.
Is that a setting that you can lock down so that users cannot add attachments in NXT View? Is that a security thing?
Yes, you can set securities through your database view and have them mirrored with your roles in NXT. I could look at that further and give you more specifics if you want to. Do you have the name on that person that asked that question, Mark? And I can email them afterwards and give them a little more.
Yep, these are all being tracked, so we can follow up afterwards.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll be happy to look that up and give you more specifics. Okay, how should we be using NXT's best managed prospects and donors on a daily basis? We pretty much touched on that previously with the work center. This is where you are working with your portfolios and so forth. If you have somebody who is like, you have your development officers, some are major gifts, some are planned giving, some maybe annual fund. They all should have their portfolios, so all of them would see their data here. There should be lists created for that where they get notified that they can run anytime to see. I would say there are things that should be run weekly to see what new gifts have come in that, where they're not in a portfolio, but they meet a certain threshold to be included, because your automatic system is going to, your gift processor is processing the gift. Everybody should be being thanked, accordingly, in a timely manner. But if you're trying to upgrade them or move them forward, you should have lists that pull those people. And it may be that, for the annual fund person, they have two lists. Here's the people that gave an amount that would move them into the annual giving level, and they need to be brought in and welcomed into that group and what have you, and start being managed. And then you have those who may just be just shy of that level and maybe need to be encouraged to give just a little bit more to hit this level. And so, and every gift area, level should have that, every development level. So and plan giving, same thing. You should be having certain lists that you review on a regular basis that pulls that data, by age, by wealth ratings, by plan giving, ratings, because they give you the likelihood of a planned gift rating and so forth. So you need to be using the ratings that Blackbaud is providing you and incorporating those into your strategies for everything you do. We good on that one?
Yep, good stuff.
If I don't have them, lovely, I mistyped. If I don't have the membership module, how can NXT be used for membership information and tracking? If you don't have the membership module, there's several ways of doing it. And it depends on what works best for your organization. There's no one right answer. I have some clients that do it via constituent code. They have their lifetime members, their annual members, and I have clients that have chapters. Their chapter memberships are all via constituent code. I have other clients that do it all via attributes. Pros and cons, attributes are queryable, so are constituent codes. But constituent codes show up. So if we go, I'm just gonna, good old Mr. Robert Hernandez. Everybody should be familiar with him. If you notice, constituent codes show up right here. So if you do your memberships under constituent codes, that membership will actually show up right here at the top of the tile. So that's a benefit to having it here. If you were to do it under attributes in the classic database view, that would actually be considered, and you can move these around, a custom field in WebView. So you would have to have, train your staff to be looking at the custom fields for memberships. Both are queryable, both have pros and cons of doing them. It depends on, the membership, the levels, how you're trying to do it, manage it. There's lots of variables. And I've seen it done both ways, and I've seen it done both ways successful. So if you don't have, the membership module, those are some options. Questions?
Good stuff. No, that's great.
Okay. Why use tags instead of attributes? Well, as we talked about earlier, tags in WebView are hard-coded. Nothing you can do about those. Those are, there you don't have a choice. So attributes are is a classic database view term, which in NXT they are custom fields, and they're for whatever you need them to be, for any other information or identifiers. So it just depends on what you're trying to do, but you don't have a choice when you're talking about using one instead of the other. They're completely different items.
That makes sense. Oh, there was another question that came up about tags, since that's kind of brought up here. So when a donor in my portfolio makes a gift, I can notice that by the tags. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Yep.
Because one of the tags that they provide is a recent gift.
Good stuff.
So, all right. I would love to see demos. I've been a Classic View backend user of RE and still find that easier to use than NXT. You're not alone. People who have been using Classic Database View and are a backend user, like a database administrator, the data person, we usually feel more comfortable in the Classic Database View of RE than NXT. NXT is a different animal, but it is very intuitive. They're just different. Like I said previously, if you're a database person, you're still going to spend the majority of your time in Classic Database View. But I strongly suggest if you have a Learn, package with Blackbaud, yeah. If you have that, if you have any of those levels, or even just go in to their training, and they have some free ones even, go through and start learning NXT. You need to understand how they interact and what you do in the Classic Database view, how that impacts the NXT view, the web view, and vice versa. As much as you're comfortable in the database view, Classic View or the web view is definitely an area you need to be just as comfortable in, and you need to start working in it. You need to understand what it's doing, how it's doing it, and how data flows back and forth between the two, so that you can avoid things like letting people attach things in WebView and then somehow the records get merged because they're duplicates, and that data is gone forever. So, I encourage everybody to if you're a database person and you're, spending most of your time in the database view, start spending time in the web view, start learning it, poking around, take classes.
And I definitely think it's a kind of right brain, left brain, and kind of the C level. And people are really looking for dashboards or definitely role based. I agree with what Erica just posted in as a comment as well. It is very much, it's okay. If you're really comfortable with and happy with the database view,
Yes.
that nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not wrong.
No.
That's what you're used to, right? And it's all good. But as far as additional demos, we also have a couple of other past recordings of other sessions where Erin's gone through and different modules in NXT. So be sure to check those out on our resources page as well.
Yeah, you are not broken. I am with you. I spend the majority of my time classic database view.
Yep.
That is where I am most comfortable. But we also have to know the NXT version, just the web view, because in dealing with our constituents and so forth, and dealing with our development officers and our C-suite and our executives, we have to be able to talk what they are seeing and what they are understanding. So we have to be able to understand what they're looking at so we can talk in a way that they understand. Because if we're talking database view, they're never going to understand what you're talking about. So it's just finding that balance. I'm totally with you though. Database view all the way. My comfort zone. Is there work that will be available in RE only and we will not be able to do in RE? Yeah, there are still many things that are still classic database view only that are not in NXT. Like I said earlier, Blackbaud's working on it. They're doing lots of things. If you have suggestions, they have in the Blackbaud community, they have an area where you can post suggestions and people vote on them. And based on that voting is how a lot of things get created sooner. So if something gets a lot of votes, quickly, they pay attention to that. So, but yeah, there's still, I would foreseeable future. There's still a lot of things that will only be done in the database view. Greatest challenge during conversion implementation. Ooh. Greatest challenge. I've been through several of these, either personally in my position or as a consultant. And this may sound very odd, but I think one of the greatest challenges during conversion and implementation has nothing to do with the data. It has to do with managing expectations. Trying to make sure that people are realistic about the time frame the time it's going to take to do the conversion or implementation, to be realistic about the results of the conversion implementation. Depending on your data and how clean it is, what system you're coming from and going into. I went through a conversion with an entity that they were working on a 30-year-old DOS-based system and 20 million spreadsheets. That's how they were doing their business. And this was just in the last few years. And so the conversion process was very challenging because we had to get all of that data from all the different spreadsheets, from a 30-year-old DOS-based system into a format that could be brought in to, Razor's Edge, and that not because it was so old, the tables, obviously it's not a one-to-one conversion field for field. There was mixed data in several areas. There were appeals and campaigns in the same table, and funds were okay, but addressee salutations were all over the court. Relationships could be anywhere in the system. They weren't all in one table. So it was a very messy conversion implementation. So on that one, the managing that expectation that when you go live, everything's going to be perfect and running, the day you go live was not realistic. So we had to manage that. And they needed to understand that when they went live, there were still months of cleanup and reports that needed to be done, recreated. I mean, they had been using reports for 30 years in their old system. They had, a certain way of doing it and seeing it. The other thing was just having the team, the mentality of the whole organization. They've been using the same software for so long, getting them away from the mentality of, but this is the way we've always done it. As soon as you hear that, that's a red flag. Just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that's how it should be done now. You are investing in a new software for a reason. Utilize it. Make it work for you. Don't tie yourself to your old system. If you want to stay the way you were always doing it, then you should have stayed with your old system. You made a change for a reason. Embrace it and enjoy it, because it will make your life better. I love working with the Blackbaud products. I've been doing it for a very long time, and it's a very complex system. You could ask somebody something, and you could ask 5 different people for something and get 5 different answers, because that's how it is. Their interpretation of what you asked, based on what they know of the system, they give you an answer. So, and usually I save this till the very end, but that's why you need documentation, and that's why you need to standardize. So you need to set your policy and then set a process with instructions, step-by-step instructions of how here's our policy, here's how we support that policy, so that you don't have that issue. So no matter who you ask for something, everybody knows exactly the way to do it, and it's pulled the same way every time. So your information stays consistent. Problem is if you don't do this and it's inconsistent, you ask for the same thing, but you get a different answer every time, people are going to lose faith in your data, and you don't want that. There's nothing wrong with your data. The problem is in what you were doing and how you were doing it, not in the data. So that's my soapbox speech on that.
I like it.
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Oh, how to set up overview financial dashboards for our board of executives, and how to set up access for them. All right. So most of your board executives would need the fundraising and reporting and this overview. If you want to modify this overview, you can have some default views that you can save, and you can save them and have them done a certain way. You can schedule them to be emailed out on a certain day at a certain time to whoever. You can schedule them to be sent. You can export it. You can download the PDF. If for access, this is again a securities thing. So you could create a security group for your board, and they would only have access to to the fundraising reports, and that would give them just to be able to go in here and look. And it can be a view only. It doesn't even have to be that they can change anything, because you would set all this. What campaigns are they going to see? What funds are they going to see? What appeals are they going to see? What gift dates are they going to see? What revenue types? And if you don't know the difference between your received and your committed, you need to get familiar with that. And so, and I don't know how many people are familiar with any of this in here, the tools, but you have different things in here. So, and there is a way of setting what your receivables are and what you're committed. And so committed usually includes your pledges and your matching gift pledges and things like that, where your received is your cash, cash in the door versus, future gifts. Basically, is the difference. So, but you would set that up, you would save it as a specific view and give them access to that view.
Awesome.
All right. When will we get the ability to create our own donation forms with editable HTML and NXT? Research Edge offer classes on how to use their product, what modules, add-ons, additional software are not included in the base packages but are most frequently needed by nonprofits. Will data health, aside from duplicate management report, ever be available for Canadians? I can only answer one of these questions. Does Razor's Edge offer classes on how to use their product? Blackbaud most definitely offers classes. They have hundreds of classes. So most definitely, they do offer classes. The rest of these questions, unfortunately, these are things that I have no control over, and they are driven by Blackbaud and would need to be answered by Blackbaud.
And we are working with them on getting those answers. I think in a couple of cases they want to have some kind of clarifying questions. So we're going to follow up. I can follow up with folks afterwards to see if we can get those, kind of refined or defined and answered for you. But yeah, thanks for sharing all those.
Yeah. And then here's my documentation. So there you go. I already went through that soapbox. But, make sure your documentation is available. So, and then we go.
I was going to say, sorry, there was one other question. Can you enter gifts and create a donor acknowledgement letter in RE NXT?
You can enter gifts, absolutely. You can enter gifts. Let me switch over here. So
throwing you a curveball right at the end.
Yeah, right. Something I wasn't prepared for. Thank you. So yes, you can enter gifts. You can create them. Pretty much you have to go by, I don't think we have the batching on ours. So you see here, add gift. I'm on the home page. You can add a gift. So you can add here. But you can only, you do it per constituent. So you can add it from there, or you can select a constituent and add it on their record.
And someone just posted that there's a cool add-on where you can record actions from your email, and it records the email actions as well.
Yes. So I don't think we have the add-ons on ours, but let me see if I have. Yeah, we don't have it. There is an area where you can go to that will show you applications. It's under Control Panel, and it will say Applications. And if you click on that, it will show you some third-party applications that you can implement. And some of those third-party applications are like Smart Gmail or, Outlook interface, so that it gives you, okay, let's see, Smart Gmail, Blackbaud for Outlook, Blackbaud for Gmail. And what it does is if you load it onto your machine, you connect your Gmail or your Outlook, and when you are doing emails for a certain constituent, it will allow you to create that action right from the email that you're writing. So
great,
definitely.
And you can do acknowledgement letters as well on NXT, right? But I'm not sure if that's something quick to show off in the remaining time or not.
Yeah, I've not done those, but let's see what we can do. So
we can also follow up after the fact if it's.
So here's where the gift batches are. So you can do your batches. You got all that. I've never done the letters from here. I've always done them from within the database view. So I would not be able to answer that question immediately unless somebody out there has a.
We'll follow up with that one. No, that's good though.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just want to swap back over to that last slide to put up our kind of resources. I think that's all the questions at this point, and we are at the end of the hour. But feel free to shoot us any other questions you have. Feel free to follow up with us directly. We do offer custom training and support. So happy to help out with any of that. There's no minimum requirement for work. It's all, we can give you estimates on that support or training. We can do custom trainings and record them so you have them available for future reference. But hopefully you found this all very helpful today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Erin, very much for your time today.
One last thing, I know there was a question about sending e-newsletters and e-appeals from NXT. I have not used Constant Contact, so I don't know how it compares. And unfortunately, we do not have, under marketing, we only have social, which is for social media, for Facebook, Twitter, things like that, posting from here for those. But if you have the email module, you would have email here also, and you would be able to do like e-blasts, e-newsletters, and things like that, and e-appeals, so forth, and build them out here and send them from within NXT. It's fairly easy and intuitive. You can embed pictures, you can do videos, you can, do all kinds of things. It does have some constrictors. It's not, top of the line, all the bells and whistles and WYSIWYGs and all that, but it is very, very functional. So I think it works very well, but it's personal preference. So if you have a chance, you could check out one of their classes on it, and see what they're doing and how they're doing that. And, you also have donation forms now that you can create here also and do your donation forms from here. And this is kind of the counterpart from OLX in the database view. So just last piece of information.
Look at that, value add tips right there at the end. I like it.
All right. Thank you all for showing up. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you all.